Hello and welcome to our webinar from the Practice Solution magazine on the subject of online referrals. I'm Wesley Edwards, the president of the Practice Solution magazine, and today with us we have Jason Wydro from Online Strategy Solutions. And the reason we brought Jason in for today's webinar is because the subject we're going to cover is one that comes up more and more often when we talk to doctors these days. We talk to doctors constantly. We talk to hundreds of doctors a week, thousands a month, and with the Practice Solution we're always trying to talk directly with doctors to determine what specifically you have your attention on and what's happening with your practice that you need help with now. Real, actual problems that you're running into. And more often what comes up is online reviews and how to deal with either negative reviews that are left on Google Plus or Yelp, or how to get your satisfied patients, the ones that have good things to say about you, how to get them to go online and start leaving reviews rather than just any sort of negative experiences that patients have had. So we brought in Jason because this is what he deals with every day with Online Strategy Solutions. He helps doctors develop and build their online profile, handle their website, and deal with social media, which includes online review sites. So what we're going to cover today is the basics of online reviews and dealing with Google and Yelp in particular, because these are two of the most popular ones. We're going to assume for the purposes of this webinar that you have some familiarity with this. You may have some reviews left already, or you're trying to deal with a negative review now. When it comes to just familiarizing yourself with these or setting up your page, adding pictures, taking ownership of your page, these are all things we'd be more than happy to help you with. And if you're at that stage in dealing with this subject, you can just give us a call. Or if there's a particular problem you want to discuss individually or anything that you need more help with from this webinar, we're always more than happy to speak with doctors.
We love a great challenge.
Yep. So the basic topics here that we're going to cover are the importance of online reviews. This is something you can't ignore anymore. It's happening, these sites are out there, and more people are using them. So it's just as important as the internal referrals, internal communication with your clients. It's just another tool or another form of building and developing your rapport with your patients. Resolving negative reviews, we're going to cover this in detail. I think that kind of speaks for itself. A negative review can have an extremely detrimental impact on the practice. Harnessing positive reviews, the flip side of that, which is getting the happy patients to talk. And frequently asked questions. At the conclusion of this webinar, throughout this, if you have any questions or you have a particular situation now that you're dealing with, start sending in your questions and we'll field and go over and discuss any of those comments and questions that come in at the end of this. All right. So first up is the importance of online reviews. First off, it is a methodology to be able to increase your sphere of influence. Already internally you meet with, you help, you work with your clients and you make them happy. They go out and one would hope that you have some sort of internal referral program to help strengthen or bolster your happy clients going out and telling other people about you and building up your word of mouth. This is one more step, one further step in terms of that action and that interaction with your clients to help build the word of mouth marketing that you have. And it's a continued referral source. It's much like the word of mouth. Once that snowball starts rolling downhill, it gains momentum, it builds on itself. Each of these reviews that are left are going to be there for years, and they're going to be there for new prospective clients to look at and to get kind of the flavor and a basic understanding of your practice.
And it should also be noted, in 2014, there was a survey done of 2,100 national consumers that determined that 88% of those consumers treated a review equally to a personal recommendation. So that's how much impact these reviews are having on businesses today.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When clients look at these review sites, they get the same kind of feeling, the same kind of impulse, and it has the same effect that it does when one of your happy clients speaks with them face to face.
It tells us there's a lot of stock and trust in the reviews, and people are using them a lot more as well. So.
Good.
All right, so the first thing we're going to go over is resolving negative reviews, the do's and don'ts. All right, so the don'ts. Don't argue, retaliate, or get defensive. This is a really important point, particularly when you're dealing with a customer who had a bad experience, whatever, what you're trying to do is resolve that situation. And in terms of a review online, you can actually publicly reply to that, or you can actually offer an actual reply and actually negotiate and mediate that. So just keep in mind, and we're going to get into more of that later. I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but we're going to get into more of that later in detail. But don't argue with Tyler to get defensive. Just stay calm, stay cool. Know that there is a solution, there is a way to resolve it, and you're going to do everything you can to make that happen, and we're going to show you how. So don't ignore reviews, no matter how bad or fabricated. Again, this is leading to the next point, or a little bit more on the early point, which we're going to cover later. This basically means just not to leave something sit there idle and pretend it doesn't exist. Because that, again, with the percentages and statistics we have today, with how many people are using reviews as literal recommendations for choosing your service, this is a very important point not to ignore. And again, kind of meshing with the last point, don't pretend as if review websites are not, affecting your business, because they are. Statistically, every practice out there is affected by reviews in some way or another. Some more than others, but statistically it's increasing every day, so it's that important.
Good. Yeah, on that second point that you just went over, ignoring the reviews, this is something I see a lot with doctors, is they have a terrible review that's really affecting the practice, it's dragging down their new client numbers, and they're looking at a lot of other areas that could be the potential cause of that. And when we sit down with a doctor to try and help them out and see what can be done to build up their new client numbers and help them with their marketing, one of the first things we do is take a look online and see what's happening. And I nearly laughed because I had a doctor that was in this exact situation, and he was looking at, was it the new front desk person that he'd added? Did they change something with their internal referral program? All kinds of other solutions, but essentially date coincident, the exact same day that his new client numbers started going down, someone left a terrible review on Yelp. And in this case, it had been about 6 months or so before the doctor ever contacted us, and he was completely unaware of it. And that's the overriding thing with this. It may seem like a really simple point, but you've got to not only be aware of these online review sites, you have to be engaged with them. Much like with general social media, something you have to be aware of and participating in and taking a look at every day, not just occasionally or when you attend a webinar.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now we're going to go over the do's. So when you're looking at how to resolve a situation or a negative review, you really want to look at being very understanding. Try to really take the perspective of the customer and the consumer. Look at the patient or the client and look at how their experience was, how someone in the office may have interacted with them, how something else may have occurred that really drove them to leave that negative review. So be very understanding, offer realistic solutions to deal with that problem. As I stated earlier in the notes, I started to talk about this, but reply to the review publicly. Both Google Plus and Yelp allow you to actually reply in your own words, from you, the way you want. You can say whatever you want, and this is where, again, where I've seen a lot of doctors go specifically wrong, is where they'll actually leave a retaliation reply, an upset, or the office manager will leave some kind of statement that literally other people come onto the review site and see that and see how unprofessional that was dealt with, and it just immediate turn off. They just don't want anything to do with the place.
It's like they just went and poured gasoline on what was a small fire. Admittedly, it was a fire. It was a problem.
Yeah.
And I've seen the same thing as you have. They just go and they make the whole thing worse. I mean, again, it's social media. It's another form of social media where the manner in which and the quality of your response can actually be a real positive.
Yeah.
Other patients, other potential patients are on there looking at this, and if they see that you can deal with it, it's
or at least you're making an effort to deal with it in a
Absolutely,
professional way,
Right.
so they know, okay, you're closer to them, they don't have to drive further to the other doctor, and look, this doctor's professional, we see he had a bad experience, who's perfect. We get that all the time. The survey included info like that as well, where there were actually people that would read negative reviews but saw positive replies, professional replies, and of course the positive outnumbered the negative, considerably.
Right.
But that one stagnant review sitting there that's just kind of idle, unresolved, unreplied to, can just burn, really cause some issues.
Yeah, and it's back to the other point too, in that you should be engaged with it is you should be replying to the positive ones as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and thanking
Absolutely.
people and happy that they had a good experience. Not only the negative ones.
Yeah, and it's a little more your wheelhouse on that, but you know, I started, when I was talking to different practices, I started looking at identifying who the right person was to deal with this kind of thing, and there's several positions where, you know, they're totally capable at the front desk area that could actually deal with this on a regular thing. And I know you help, you know, establish that, you know, determining that on your end.
Yeah, a lot of this has to do with the natural flow in an office that should already exist. There should be inherently a system in place in every practice to build a good rapport with clients and to encourage them and ask them to refer their friends and family.
Sure.
And build on the word of mouth. And this is essentially an extension of that. So it can be different for each practice, how they have this policy set up and who's handling this, but the person that's dealing with it needs to have good communication skills. There needs to be real office policy in terms of how you deal with difficulties with clients.
Right.
And that same methodology and those same communication skills need to be applied and adhered to when it comes to dealing with the online reviews.
Absolutely. And then this last point was just give a personal reply. And that's basically what we went over, you know, actually leaving a personal reply. It's really great if the actual doctor can leave an acknowledgement reply, particularly if there's an upset in the office. I've seen that to be really effective when the doctor's taking full responsibility, saying, hey, you know, this was my staff, I'm very sorry. How can we make this right?
Right, and in terms of
Yeah.
the steps with dealing with a negative review, the first thing is a public reply, as you were saying.
Right.
You know, if it's from the doctor and, you know, talk about the upset and do whatever you can to handle it, but don't negotiate or tell them you'll do something or that kind of thing there publicly. But you do want to reach out to them personally.
Sure, absolutely.
And that would probably be the most important step because as I understand it, whoever left the review always has the option then to delete it or
edit
change it, edit it,
Yep.
or post again and say that it was resolved and the doctor and staff were great.
Yep.
And that again can be some of the best positive feedback that you can have on there is if you demonstrate the ability to have handled it, right?
Absolutely, and it's perfectly okay to ask a client or an upset client to remove the review in the event that you resolve the situation. That's perfectly acceptable on the review side and the technical side. Definitely not into exchange of money or anything like that, but just a straight, you know, a real negotiation with a good ending, you know, to get that resolved.
Good. So the first couple steps is make sure you're viewing these sites so that you're on top of it, and as soon as there is a negative review, jump all
Deal with it
over it,
immediately.
but don't deal with it in in a manner that's going to make it worse. Don't
Right.
retaliate or, you know, tell them they're wrong.
Right.
Publicly apologize, you know, deal with it, and then privately reach out to that person and try and get them to handle it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so the positive reviews. The don'ts first, and we'll start with offering things in exchange. With all of these review sites, there's supposed to be a safe space for any client to just communicate and lay out, you know, their opinion on their experiences. So whether it's Google Plus or Yelp or any other review site, the last thing they want is anyone soliciting reviews or trading services or offering things, water bottles or something in exchange for reviews. The review should be organic, right? There should
Absolutely.
be something that comes from their experience there. So this also would mean don't send out like an email blast asking everybody to give you reviews or something that would end up resulting in a large amount of reviews in a small time frame. They're going to filter that out. They're going to pick that up, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's a really good point. So when we think about the review sites, a lot of doctors that I've spoken with in the past have actually thought that there were staff members from Yelp or Google or any major review that were sitting behind the scenes just waiting for the review and reading it and saying, okay, let it go. That's kind of what they thought. Actually, what they have is a very automated system. And they have something what's called filters. And basically, every time someone writes a review of any kind, negative, positive, whatever, it goes through those filters, and a lot of this stuff is determined. Now, particularly, a lot of this stuff would only really be known if someone mentioned it to the review company and said, someone just offered me this for a review. And people actually do that. People that are very into review websites will report bad practices because it's in the best interest of the review site and the person to keep the reviews legitimate and real for everybody to get the best quality of service. So, offering things and all that can on an external level can cause problems. The email point, though, where this comes into the filter, is the review sites monitor and determine based statistically on how many reviews you have a month, how many reviews you have a week generally on average, and they kind of systematically determine this. And so when all of a sudden overnight they see a review, 10 reviews or 25 reviews in a couple days, something's very inaccurate about this. So what happens particularly on Yelp, you'll see a bunch of reviews that are recommended and then reviews that are not recommended. And I've spoken to doctors who have like three recommended reviews from legitimate reviewers and then 10 unrecommended that are just hidden down at the bottom that nobody will ever see. So in that case, that's the filter doing work saying, and again, there's a lot of factors that are taken into account in that filtering process, particularly even the user itself. And a lot of companies in the past, what they were doing would sell and solicit for a company and try to get reviews for that person, and those reviews would just end up tanking or causing problems with that Yelp account or Google account.
Right, and with Yelp, in terms of what is considered a recommended review, it has to do with both sides of the coin, right? One is who's leaving the review. Is this their first review ever, and they only signed up yesterday? That's not going to have a lot of weight.
Right.
If there's someone that's reviewed a bunch of restaurants and you as a dentist, and they
or they've even checked into your location. That's a big one.
Another one, yeah. But if there's somebody that's active on it, then it'll give it more weight. And then it's the same thing for you, which is another reason why you need to have ownership of these pages. You need to be engaged, or even you yourself should start using these sites when you go out to.
Yeah, that's really the best.
dinner
The best possible tip is if you don't have Yelp on your iPhone or Android, install it. If you're not using Google for reviews, start using it. Leave some reviews for some restaurants you eat at, hotels, any of these basic services that we're using all the time. It's a great way to get familiar, so you're kind of better understanding what your actual patients and clients are potentially doing when they're seeing the review site.
Good point.
Get a better understanding. So.
All right, so yeah, on the do's in terms of building and harnessing the positive reviews, I'll talk a lot about this because it's essentially an extension of what we've helped clients with for about 20 years and what hopefully every doctor out there has been doing since the minute they threw their doors open, which is building good patient rapport. And that starts with amazing service. Giving good work, making sure when any client leaves that they're happy, and they're satisfied with the service. That's the number one thing we can do. We want to make sure that the administrative quality control in the office is strong. And this is quite frankly something that's weak in most of the practices we talk to. And the best way that I can describe this to anyone is you as a doctor are going to ensure that you're getting continuing education, that you're keeping up to date with all of the latest technology, all of the latest procedures, and that you should be a much better doctor and provide much better service today than you did 6 months or 6 years ago. You're constantly evolving and hopefully improving. That same standard needs to be applied to your office. Your front desk staff, your office manager, every single person in the office from an administrative standpoint should be getting better, should be getting continuing education, and we should have something to refer to in terms of job descriptions, office policy, and patient communications, where if there is any problem, it can be corrected, and there's a standard format and system in place to build good patient rapport. And then these things that we're talking about with review sites can just be simply added into that and another part of what you do to create good ambassadors for your patients. So the other thing would be letting them know that you're aware of all of these sites, you're on there, and making it easy for them to find you. So that can be leaving cards or just telling them that you have a Google Plus page or you have a Yelp page. And again, back to his point of how many reviews you have each week, each month, and all that, this needs to be consistent. It's not something you do for a week or just after we talk about it with this webinar. But day in and day out, week in and week out, you're promoting to your clients. You're letting them know that they're great clients. We shouldn't be promoting to everybody. We should be promoting to the clients you really want to build your practice around, those who show up on time, those who pay their bills, those who you like working with. And we should let them know that they're great patients, that you enjoy working with them, and that you'd love to see more people like them in your office. That's the important communication that every good client should be getting from your office. And then we just tack on to the end of that, hey, we're on Yelp, we're on Google Plus. If you use any of those review sites, we'd love to, have you leave us a review. That's it. Nothing, no twisting their arms, no sales, no baiting, none of those kind of tactics.
Absolutely. Keep it really simple, and there's many ways which we'll go over later that some tips on ways doctors can get more reviews that way too.
Perfect.
So.
Yeah, and this is the other end of it, is that internal referral campaign should be something that's organized throughout the practice and consistent. It shouldn't be just one front desk person doing it sometimes, or the office manager is willing to take responsibility and talk with the patients. It shouldn't be individualized. It needs to be a coordinated campaign from all of the staff in the office to ensure that we're sending clients out there that are going to be bringing in more clients.
All right, so now we're going to go to some frequently asked questions. We actually have quite a list. We're going to go as far as we can with these, but as you said earlier, you have the number to call and everything if anyone needs help.
Good, perfect. And I think some people have been sending in some, so let's go straight to it.
All right, so what can you do about a negative review on products that you sell, but it's not really a quality of service issue?
Sure, I'll take that one. So basically, in both Google and Yelp particularly have a terms and conditions and terms of use document that is very clear, very well written, and really describes exactly what violates, what could violate and actually have a review just removed, because it really doesn't apply. It's completely inapplicable. So in that case, reviewing a product that someone sells and not reviewing the service of the company is really a review for the product, not a review for the actual company that's selling it. So in that case, a lot of times you can actually have a review removed under the terms and conditions. And when you request to have a review like that removed, it's very important to include in an email, or however you're flagging it, however you're going about doing that, is to include terms of service violation, terms and conditions violation. And again, going back to the filters and the way Google and Yelp work, a lot of times those emails, particularly because they have that statement in them, will be automatically sent directly to the personnel that would deal with that manually at that point and decide if they should remove that review or not. So that's just more of a little bit of a tip and a little technical thing. But again, if you have more questions on that, please just email or call in so we can go through that a little bit more.
That's actually a good point too, because that refers to one aspect of the terms of service, which is if it's essentially an inappropriate review. It's not a review for that service, like somebody's complaining about the dog food that you sold them, but it's not the fact that you sold it to them. They have a problem with the dog food itself if you're a veterinarian, or maybe as an optometrist, the third party that's providing the frames or the lenses somebody's complaining about, or as a dentist, the materials that you were using. That's all something that you can flag and that you can get removed. And this is important because when we were going through negative reviews before, the first step that we want to address or handle with someone is we want to comment publicly after we see the review and handle it and not be irritated.
And that should be the first thing, absolutely.
That's number one.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that you had said, number two, would be communicate privately and individually to that person and work with them to see if you can handle the problem and get them to change or handle the review. But the other thing that we can share and help people with is you can get them removed yourself if you understand the terms of service. So in addition to that first problem we're dealing with, like products that are outside of what you deliver, other ones would be harassment, personal attacks,
prejudice.
Yeah.
Hate talk, any type of hate speech particularly, or directed specifically at a personnel, like a very personal type of review that's
right.
attacking
it's not about
or threatening.
The practice, it's about
like the office manager, but going off, about the front desk person and how this, and it's just very, very negative. That can be frowned upon greatly, and also can fall under the terms of service violation.
Right. And you can help us provide to anybody out there the terms of service for Google and Yelp that they can use to look at. Right?
Absolutely, and we actually provided those links on here. And again, if you can't see these very clearly, we'd be happy to send them to you. This is the Yelp guidelines here, and this is for Google, so you can better understand what violates and falls under those violations.
Yeah, and for us at the Practice Solution, if you have any sort of negative review out there right now, give us a call and we will help you with it. Each one of them is individual, whatever interaction you had with the person, how they left the review, all these things are different with each one. So we're giving general guidelines now, but we're more than happy to help anyone individually with any problem that they're having in their practice. And we want to help. That's what we're here for. I think we've seen it all. I personally think I've heard it all.
I'm pretty sure, but I won't be surprised if I see something.
Exactly. If there's something outside of the box, I'd love to get a real challenge. But the ultimate thing here is, we can sit down with you and take a look at some of these. For example, open up the terms of service on one hand, take a look at the review on the other with you and walk through it and see, if we can find anything that it's violating. We can help you crafting your communication to speak with somebody personally. We'll go through all of this with you on a one-on-one basis to really help you with your individual situation. So, cool.
All right, so we have another one. A doctor asking, should I get a computer or tablet dedicated just for reviews at my front desk?
I would personally, based on the way Google and Yelp, this is my personal view based on observation and seeing how well the performance is of reviews that are attained that way. And I have seen companies build reviews that way. However, I have noticed a difference in the recommended reviews in Yelp, for example, versus the basically hidden reviews that don't represent a lot. Mainly because, again, it falls into that quick time frame, that quick review, and all coming from the same source. Okay? So Google and Yelp both have a way to determine and track where that review is actually coming from, and they can determine if there's reviews coming from a specific location all the time, every day. There could be some type of solicitation happening, some kind of other exchange for the client or patient to leave a review. So that can be frowned upon, and again, it can violate the terms of service, and either one of your accounts can be penalized, and it cannot be great for business.
So the best thing would be just to encourage the client to leave a review and leave them to their own devices, literally and figuratively.
Yep.
To use their own device or do it when they get home or that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. That's really, and again, you have to go back to the foundation of Google and Yelp. Particularly Yelp, they really wanted to create an environment that was non-biased. It was very real, where someone could get a real, honest feedback about a service, a doctor, a practitioner, whatever profession they might be, whatever level they might be. So taking that into consideration, everyone could pretty much see why they would do that and why they would want it that way because of the legitimacy and the importance of keeping that standard.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one you guys kind of touched on, but it has to do with the doctor. Is the doctor responsible for handling reviews, or is it the receptionist, or how does that work?
This is a good one, and would be more, I guess, in my wheelhouse. That's a general practice management question. So the quick answer to that is no. The last thing that I ever want the doctor doing is doing anything that could be done as well or better by someone else. Ultimately, I want the doctor either treating clients and doing what only they can do, or I want them doing what they want to do, which probably isn't going on Yelp and talking with people. It's probably, out fishing, spending time with their family, etc. So dealing with social media, dealing with review sites for the most part is all something that can be done by an office manager or front desk person, and in a lot of cases better and more actively. But I would want any practice out there to ensure that they have good office policy and job descriptions, good communication training, and that they have the right personnel to be handling these sensitive areas, because it isn't something I just want anybody doing. So, and again, if that's any sort of area that you have your attention on or you're not sure who in your office you should be using for this, that's the kind of thing that we would need to handle one-on-one, because I wouldn't know either. I don't know who you are, and I don't know who your staff are. And
just in terms of just on that point, in terms of resolving the negative review and who's to reply, just from some experience on that point, in certain cases, the doctor replying or a letter written for the doctor with his name coming from him, based on his words, but somebody wrote it for him, that can be really helpful because it's showing that level of care is put into it, that the doctor is actually personally reaching out. And this particularly I've seen in smaller practices that have had more of a personal relationship with their patients and clients.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's particularly the smaller communities that don't have, and aren't in the major cities.
I should clarify that if you have a real situation where you already have a negative review, that's something the doctor needs to put his attention on, and he needs to be involved in handling that.
But it is really a case-by-case situation. You're dealing with different towns, different cities, different locations, different demographics, different technology skill levels, with using abilities to leave reviews and things. So
right. But when it comes to the everyday aspects of building and developing positive reviews, that's something that can and should be being done by the front office and by the office manager and by an organized and good internal referral program.
Good, and that comes to the next question. Can you give a list of steps that the receptionist might do to get reviews?
Yeah, this would kind of touch on the earlier question of having good office policy and having good job descriptions. There should, in any office, since its inception, have been a specific program in place for how you're going to build patient rapport and how you're going to get referrals. There's a lot of wrong ways to do this that I've seen. There's very few or only one right way to do it, which we go over all the time in our articles and help people with. And I can do a webinar for days on this. But ultimately, we want to be selective about who we're asking for referrals. I don't want every office to ask everyone. You need to determine what your criteria is for a good client. That's up to you. It's your practice. It's a private practice. You figure out what that is. Then we know who's coming in every day that fits that criteria, and you assign an appropriate staff member to speak with that person, ask them how it's going, and tell them more than anything that we appreciate them as a client, that they are a good client, and we know that's true because we have a criteria and they meet it. And then let them know that we would love to see more clients just like them. And if they know of anybody else who needs a good dentist, needs a good doctor, needs a good veterinarian, that they should tell them about you. And all we need to do at this point is tack on that, you know, if they're utilizing any of these review sites, you would love to hear their opinion on the practice, and that's it. There's a number of other steps that we can take that really depend on what's already in place in your office and where we can slide in some of these different things that we can do so that it's not creating a new problem for you or taking time from your existing staff, but can just enhance what's already in place.
All right, great. So the last question here is there a way to remove a 1-star review? It has like no data, no real even name. It just says Google user or whatever, but there's no real data there.
That's a great question, and it's an interesting question. And most of the reviews that I've personally encountered that had that kind of information were more at the get-go and the foundation of when Google first started offering the review service. That's just what I've seen. I know there's more later than that. That's just particularly what I've seen. And their system of filters and algorithm, their mathematical process for determining a good review and not a good review, has changed a lot during the process and the development over the years. There's been at least some significant modifications to that. So that could be one portion of that. Also, the fact that it's there, it could technically fall under the terms of service violation because it's totally inapplicable. Nothing there, no data, no information. It doesn't say anything. It's just a negative review. The other point is that if the review is, it has nothing. A lot of times, and it's interesting. Statistically, this has changed over the years. But the average user who's using Yelp or Google particularly, and they're looking at reviews, they see something like that, and they just ignore it. Literally, it can be ignored because they know it was just, someone, doing something, naughty, basically.
Right, a lot of those users are going to be savvy enough, they've done this enough, they've looked at enough reviews,
Yeah,
that, I think you made an important point too, and that it's almost always going to violate the terms of service because it's not what these review sites are looking for anyway. They're looking for a real user with a real experience discussing it.
Yeah.
And if somebody's just flying by and leaving a 1-star thing or all that,
Yeah.
we can
And
work on that.
the downside of that too, though, it can affect your overall star rating.
Right.
So if you have 5 stars and you have this 1 star sitting at the bottom, it might, your Google review might say 4.5, rating. And so it averages itself out.
Right. So that person with that particular question or that particular problem, or any negative review of that kind or any other question, contact us individually. We will work with you. We can take a look at that specific review. We can go over the terms of service, and we can help you do whatever needs to be done to handle that problem, right?
Absolutely.
There's actually one more question here as well. So there's a doctor that's basically just getting more negative reviews than positive reviews, and how can that get handled because people are upset when they're...
That is definitely in the management wheelhouse.
Yeah, understood. What we have in that situation, and we've helped people generate and build their reviews, and what's going to happen in that instance is whatever kind of patients are leaving your office, if you're getting more of them to leave reviews, you're going to get more of those kind of reviews. The situation that normally indicates is we have a service problem, an administrative problem, a management problem. And when you look at reviews, you need to first of all realize that reviews are a symptom or a result. The cause happens before they ever leave your office. So if you're getting a lot of positive reviews and everybody's happy, you're doing things right, you have good internal office policy and things are going great. If you're getting bad reviews, that is a management problem. That's a communication, a development of the rapport with the clients, and that's a symptom of a deeper underlying problem that, again, like many of these other issues, we need to sit down individually with the client and walk all the way through the practice. What are your goals and purposes? Why did you choose this particular profession? How did you get started? Did you inherit a staff and a management system from the previous owner? Did you start one from scratch and you just kind of flew by the seat of your pants and made a bunch of decisions that led to how the practice is running now? There's a lot of scenarios that are individual, and that's why the only way we can really effectively address those types of issues is if we have a chance to sit down with someone one-on-one and kind of peel back the layers of the practice and take a look at what's actually going on there and handle the underlying cause in the practice rather than just the symptom. So thanks for spending some time out of your busy schedule with us. We hope that this was really useful and important information with you. The purpose of the practice solution is to give you something that you can go back into your office today and apply and utilize and do something with. So we're going to be presenting a lot more webinars as we go along here, and we hope that you're a part of that, and we hope that we can give you a lot of more useful information for your practice.
Absolutely, and if anything at all was unclear just from the technical end, we'd be really happy to answer your questions, and I really like a great challenge, so please, if you think you have something that's never been seen or no one can deal with, love to hear about it, want to try to help you resolve it.
Thanks again, and have a great day.